What's up guys, welcome back to Vlogs with Vanessa. Today I'm gonna do a video on 5 things I've learned about living in Alaska. Okay, so it's official. I've lived here for a whole year and I'm gonna tell you just 5 things that I've learned since living in Alaska. They're not gonna be in any particular order. It's just gonna be 5 odd things that I think are different from the lower 48. And for reference, here is Fairbanks, and that's where I live. Here is Anchorage, which is a very populated city. It's the biggest city in Alaska by population. Fairbanks is the 2nd largest by population, and the capital, Juneau, is all the way down here. This is Juneau, the capital of Alaska. And as you can see, Alaska is a very, very large state. And one thing I like to point out, this highway runs mostly north to south. All this over here, you cannot get to unless you fly in. So big state, not very many roads. Blah, 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 blah. Let's get into the 5 things I've learned. All right, so number 1 is not gonna be super surprising. It snows here, obviously. But one thing that I learned pretty quickly last year after we had been here and it snowed a couple times is the snow is super dry, okay? Living up here is dry weather altogether. Like, yes, it snows, but it's dry snow. Like if you tried to make a snowball, it's not gonna do that. It's gonna just fall apart. It almost looks like fake snow, honestly. And the air is super dry. You'll be like walking around the house and the static is so crazy just because it's so dry. My skin and my hair have suffered from the winter being here. But yeah, so one thing is the snow is super dry. Okay, number 2 is haul your own trash, okay? This actually doesn't pertain to me personally, but a lot of people that live in Alaska do have to haul their own trash, which means you have to take your trash from your house to the dump. I didn't know that that was even a thing, but turns out a lot of people here living in rural parts, even in some cities, they do that. And there's transfer sites all around where you just take your own stuff. Number 3 is living in a dry house. Now, this one is super fun to tell my family and friends and stuff, because when you say, yeah, they live in a house with no water, people are like, what? Yes, a lot of people do actually live here in dry houses. And so we stayed in a yurt a few weeks ago and it was a dry yurt. I mean, there's no running water. There was a sink in there. What it looks like is there's a sink, but directly under the sink is a bucket and it just catches your water and then, you know, you dump your water. So a lot of houses and cabins and stuff are like that up here because either they live in a cabin and it's small, or they live in a smaller house and they don't want their pipes to freeze, because in Fairbanks area and then other parts of Alaska, it can get to -60, okay? That's pretty cold. Your is definitely going to freeze. Another thing, yes, if there is no running water, what about a toilet? Well, a lot of people who live in Alaska also use outhouses. Yes, it is a very common thing. Like I said, it doesn't pertain to me, but I have learned that there's a lot of outhouses. Even if I wanted to like go rent a Airbnb or something and it's a cabin, it's most likely going to have an outhouse and it's most likely going to be dry, which means that you're probably going to have to bring in water, 5-gallon things of water to cook your own food and to drink water. That is number 3, water. Number 4 is hilarious because growing up down in the lower 48, but never actually being on one, snowmobile. Okay, so in Alaska, you don't call them snowmobiles. A lot of people call them sleds. They'll take their sleds out and go play in the snow or hunting or whatever it is that they are doing with it. They usually call it a sled. I've heard some people call it a snow machine, but not a snowmobile. Okay, I don't even know the laws on like where you can or cannot drive them, but I know people drive them everywhere because you'll see tracks on the side of the highway, you'll see them in big fields, I mean, everywhere. I have not been on one yet. I might try to get on one this winter, but you kind of have to take a safety course where I live, so I don't know. I might not, have no idea. But number 4 is sled or snow machine, not snowmobile, okay? Number 5. Number 5 is something I kind of knew, but didn't really understand all of it. So I'm sure that you have heard Alaska gets 24 hours of sunlight in the summer and 24 hours of darkness in the winter. technically parts of Alaska, that is true. This is the North Pole line, okay? So if you live above that line, that latitude, in winter months, it is going to be super dark, and in summer, it's going to be super light, about 6 months out of the year. I live right here, which is about 100, I think it's like 120 miles from that Arctic Circle, and we get about 3 hours and 45 minutes of sunlight a day in the winter, okay? So the sun will come up around 10:30-ish and set around 2:30-ish, give or take. And this is not super light out. It's not like super bright. It's more of like a dusk or dawn. And then in the summer, we get about 2 hours and 15 minutes of darkness, which is also not really dark. It's actually like dusk or dawn. Depending on where you live in Alaska, you're gonna get more or less sunlight or darkness depending on what time of the year it is. So that is something that I have heard before, but I guess I didn't really realize how big Alaska is, and it varies actually where you live. So those are my 5 things that I have to share with you today on things that I've learned since living here for a year. I've learned a lot of other things, but I just wanted to share 5 today. This is all I have for now. Remember to have a great week and always try your best to be kind to other people, and I will see you guys in the next one.